Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Just note we have a slight technical hitch, so there will be a delay to the start. Hopefully it's just a case of turning it off and on again. To the members of the public, I'd just like to apologise again. This is the first time we've had the problem as bad as this, and I don't think it'd be correct to carry on like this. So we'll either hope to get it fixed, or we may move to another room, or we may adjourn the meeting for a week or so. But as soon as we've decided what we're doing, we will let you know. Apologies once again. Just to let everyone know, we're going to give it another 15 minutes. If we can't get the technology to work, then we will be adjourning the meeting until the 1st of July. Like I say, apologies. This is the first time this has happened in the last 6 years. Okay, thank you all. It appears for the moment the technological glitch has resolved itself. Long may that continue. My name is Richard Lee, Councillor Richard Lee. I'll be chairing this meeting. Agenda item 1, Chair's announcements. Emergency evacuation procedures. In the case of a fire, a bell will ring continuously. If this occurs, please leave the building immediately, following the green fire exit signs out of the assembly point, which is by the War Memorial on Duke Street. If anyone requires assistance, please do let us know. Note, lifts should not be used. Please remain at the assembly point and do not attempt to return into the building until you have been advised that it is safe to do so. With regards to facilities, the toilets are situated on the landing at the top of the main staircase and on the ground floor in the customer service area. Note, mobile phones should be turned off throughout the duration of this meeting. Filming of this meeting. Anyone attending this meeting is entitled to film it, but I should point out that only the councillors, officers and anyone sitting around these tables may be filmed. Members of the public should not be filmed, so please ensure that cameras are pointed only in this direction. Note, this meeting is also being broadcast via YouTube and recorded. Note, when speaking, can I remind the committee to ensure that your microphone is switched on and to speak closely into it. A red light will appear on the middle button to indicate your microphone is switched on. When finished speaking, please remember to turn your microphone off again. Agenda item 2, apologies for absence.
And we're all here, Chair.
Thank you. Agenda item 3, declarations of interest. As all members are reminded that they must disclose any interests they know that they have in terms of business on the meeting's agenda, and that they must do so at this point on the agenda or as soon as they become aware of the interest. If the interest is a disclosable pecuniary, I can never say that word, interest, they are also obliged to notify the monitoring officer within 28 days of the meeting. Does anyone have anything to declare at this point? Nope. Okay. Minutes of the previous planning meeting held on the 29th of April. Are we happy to approve those minutes? Thank you. Agreed. Public question time, item 5. We have received public questions for items 7 and 8 this evening. These had to have been submitted by 7 p.m. yesterday and have been published on the agenda page and have been circulated to committee members. We will hear these questions under the relevant agenda item, and those who have submitted a question will have 2 minutes to read it out. I will call you forward to ask your question at the relevant points. Note to members of the committee, there is a green sheet for this. There were several updates to it, so I hope you have all gone through it. Just to note, we are adjusting the agenda slightly tonight. We will be taking agenda item 8 first, which is land southeast of Banters Lane Business Park first, and then items 6 and 7. On to agenda item 8, which is the aforementioned planning application. Can I ask the planning officer to introduce the report to the committee? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this is a full detailed application for 105 residential dwellings, and it includes 5 custom homes and 35% affordable homes. And this is within strategic site 7C in your local plan. So this slide shows you the position. So we've got 7A, which is the larger of the sites within the strategic 7 allocations, which has got a resolution to grant, subject to a legal agreement from this committee. 7B has also partly got a resolution to grant as well. And this application relates to 7C. So 7C is broken down into 3 parcels with a larger parcel, a smaller parcel onto Banters Lane, and a third parcel which is on the northern side of Banters Lane. This application is for the largest of the 3 parcels. And then 7D is to the south. This has been granted permission and has now been built, and is the Radcliffe Way that approaches the development in 7C. So as you can see here, this is the application site outlined in red, and we've got the built 7D and the other site, the smaller site that's on the northern side, the northeastern side, there is a planning application in at the moment for 8 dwellings, which is currently pending consideration. So again, here's the built 7D development to the south. There is also existing properties to the east, which is off Main Road and Green Gates Close. We also have Banders Lane Business Park on that northwestern corner. And then we have 7C at the north there. And then we have some properties fronting onto Banders Lane. To the southeast, we have Sandy Lane and Moat Woods Nature Reserve, which is managed by Essex Wildlife Trust. And also to the east, we've got Gubbins Hall, listed building and scheduled monument. We also have additional listed buildings, which are grade 2 listed buildings, which are faced onto Main Road and back onto the application site. There are further listed buildings to the east, which are mentioned in the strategic policy. The strategic sites have, there is a master plan that applies to all of them, which has been approved, and this sets out the requirements in relation to 7C. So there is a requirement for pedestrian and cycle connections, access from Radcliffe Way, which is the built 7D development, landscape sections to the southeast and along that eastern side, which is the green section that you can see there, a parcel of residential development, children's play and a SUDS feature. The strategic policy included a bus route which was going to go through the site. This was not required as part of the master plan. So this is a block plan of the development. We have the main access coming in from, main vehicular access coming in from the Radcliffe Way there, from the 7D development. We have the landscaped areas to the southeast and along the eastern side. We have 5 custom homes. We have the children's play area. And we have the Suds Pond in the bottom right-hand corner. The proposal would upgrade, because there's a footpath 14, which runs along this southern boundary. So they would upgrade part of that public right-of-way to a cycle pedestrian route. And then it would return back to its route and exit on the south-eastern corner. A cycle pedestrian route would then continue through the site and exit on the northern corner there, where it would link into the attached 7C site. So these are a wider thing, so you can see the connections there, which we have, which is the upgrade of footpath 14 from the main road and the crossing of the main road, the connection to Radcliffe Way, the continuation to the footpath, the connection to the attached 7C, and then that's the intention when it joins up with the other developments for the cycle connection, the cycle and pedestrian connection. This shows you an example of the street scenes within the development. As you can see, there's a mix of appropriate materials, there's a mix of house types. All the properties are either single-storey or two-storey. There is gabled house forms on this one, and there is also hipped roof forms which aren't shown on this particular street scene. It's generally a vernacular design. The proposal would provide some legal obligations where it would provide 35% affordable housing. It would undertake highway works to Main Road and provide a contribution to the North East Bypass, a contribution to the bus service, that pedestrian and cycle route, contribution to healthcare, the 5 custom homes, a contribution towards specialist residential accommodation, a contribution to education. It would provide open space, local amenity space, and a contribution to strategic open space along with tree planting and play space. There would also be contributions to outdoor sport and allotments. And there'd also be a contribution for the recreational avoidance mitigation strategy and towards the Sandy Lane and Moat Woods Essex Wildlife Trust Nature Reserve. So in conclusion, the proposal is allocated for development. It is consistent with the approved master plan. The design and layout is acceptable. The proposal will provide affordable and custom-built housing, and it will provide those legal obligations. The proposal is recommended for approval, subject to conditions and completion of the Section 106. You will note on the green sheet that there has been an amendment to one of the conditions, and that is due to a discrepancy that was found on the plans when we were when we were working out the condition for the obscure glazing. It was found that one of those windows would be blocked, which is why we sought that amendment, which is why there's that addition on that condition. And there is also an additional condition to prevent future upper floor windows in relation to a bungalow that backs onto Green Gates Close.
Thank you. I'd now like to invite members of the public who have submitted questions to read them out. I understand there is a Mrs. Thompson. Thank you. That's it, yep, just see if the microphone's working, should be okay.
Is that working?
Perfect,
Correct.
yes. So yeah, you've got 2 minutes. I will be quite strict on that for courtesy of everybody else. Thank you.
No, that's fine. Thank you. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, officers, for your recommendation. My name is Diana Thompson, and I'm the planning agent for the application. I'm speaking this evening on behalf of the applicant, Bellway Homes, in support of the proposed development to deliver 105 new homes on Strategic Growth Site 7C, land south of Banters Lane. The application represents the next step in the delivery of Strategic Growth Site C as allocated in the Chelmsford Local Plan. Bellway's proposals fully align with the approved Great Leys Master Plan, and the application before you this evening is the result of extensive engagement with officers, stakeholders and the local community over the last 2 years. The scheme proposes a high-quality, landscape-led development, delivering 35% affordable housing, 5 custom-build plots and a mix of homes to meet local needs. It also includes accessible and adaptable dwellings, ensuring inclusive design for all. Significant community benefits will be secured through a comprehensive Section 106 agreement, including contributions towards education, healthcare, sustainable transport and local open space. The scheme also enhances pedestrian and cycle connectivity, upgrades both local bus infrastructure and improves the existing public right-of-way. Following the submission of the application, there has been extensive engagement with your officers and statutory consultees. A number of amendments have since been made to address all consultee comments and ensure all technical matters have been resolved. There are now no outstanding objections from any statutory consultees, including highways, drainage and ecology. This is a policy-compliant, deliverable scheme that will make a meaningful contribution to Chelmsford housing supply. Your officers have concluded the application before you to be acceptable in all regards. I would like to finish by thanking the case officer for her well-written report, and I therefore respectfully request that the application be approved in accordance with the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There's nothing that I believe officers need to come back on with that. So I will open this up to the committee for any questions or queries. Who would like to go first? Councillor Hall.
Could I just understand the detail and what it's meant by custom dwellings?
If officers would like to come back on that one, thank you.
Of course. So custom build dwellings is an opportunity for residents to get properties that they can custom themselves. So as part of this application, they've submitted a range of the options that the future occupiers would be able to customise. So this slide kind of sets out a page from that document that they'll be able to choose which plot, and they'll be able to customise the internal layout. They'll be able to customise the materials and the windows, and in terms of the design of those windows, the windows are set in terms of their placement, but in terms of the style of the windows. They can customise the doors They can also customise the landscaping and energy technology, as well as like an outbuilding such as a home office. This slide here just shows you a bit more. So where the orange dots are, there's all the options that can be customised in terms of the external appearance. And this shows you two options. So there's the standard design plan, which is on your left. And on the right, there is set items, which is the stairs and the kitchen and the bathroom. And in the green areas are the customisable items on the internal floor layout.
Thank you. Any other questions from members of the committee? Councillor, yes, sorry.
Sure, you mean me. Okay. I just had a quick question about the cycle and pedestrian way, and just asking really, are they two separate things? So there is a cycle route and there is a pedestrian route, and they happen to be next to each other, or is this a shared route in which you would expect to find cycles and pedestrians together?
Councillor Frascone, have you got a further question? And then officers can come back.
Yeah, it's just about the provision of SUDs and open spaces. I saw that Essex County Council Parks and Open Spaces said that the SUD that's labelled can't be included as usable open space contribution due to its position. And I wondered why it was included then, and what's the story there. And also, it's good that a contribution will be made to Section 106, under Section 106, to make up for the lack of the provision of open space and allotments. But I'd just like reassurance that it will be used specifically to provide and support open spaces and allotments nearby. Thanks.
If officers would like to come back on the questions from Councillor Large and Councillor Frascone.
Of course. I'll just get to the right slides. So taking the cycle pedestrian route from Councillor Jenny Large, what we have here at the moment is quite a narrow footpath which comes from Main Road into the site. So because of the narrowness of that access there, it would be a shared route when it comes into the site, and I would expect it to be a shared route through the site. In respect of the open space has been checked in terms of meeting with our policies in terms of the square meterage, and the SUDS feature wasn't included in that. We found that the local amenity was provided and the semi-natural space was provided, but open strategic space was not provided, which is why there's a contribution requested for that aspect. In terms of the allotments money, that would be towards the come to the city council, which would go to our parks department, and it is anticipated that it would be used in Great Leys.
Any further questions from members of the committee? Going back to Councillor Large.
Thank you, Chair. So, overall, it's a good application, but I do think it's disappointing when applications come in, and I said it before about other applications, where you still have, making new build areas, and we're still putting cyclists and pedestrians on the same space, because they go at different speeds, and it's just not how you encourage people to use active transport, because it is annoying for everybody. I appreciate that the existing section is probably too narrow to have both. So that is, you're kind of forced by the geography. But in the new section, I would really hope that that gets built out as wide enough to be separate for the different things that are going on there. So cyclists separate from pedestrians. And just a is there just a general comment about what some things I quite like about the application is the 35% affordable housing. I'm really pleased to see that is in there and that 35% has been met, and that actually when you look at the breakdown between affordable rent and shared ownership, there is a significant proportion of it that is affordable rent. And I can see we're going to get three bed and four bed homes through that, which is for affordable rent, which is good to see coming in. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's a fair point. I share similar concerns. If you're going through Central Park, for example, where it's shared, it just becomes slightly messy. So seeing this on new builds is slightly disappointing. Any other questions from committee members? Nope. Okay. So in that case, I move that application 24/00695/Phil, land southeast of Banters Lane Business Park, Great Leys, Chelmsford, be approved, subject to the completion of a Section 106 agreement, together with compliance with the conditions detailed on page 179 to 191 of the agenda pack, the detail of those items and any variations that may be considered necessary and appropriate to be delegated to the Director of Sustainable Communities or the Planning Development Services Manager in consultation with the Chair and Vice Chair of the Planning Committee. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Dobson, thank you. Will all of those in favour of this application please raise your hand? Will all those not in favour of approving this application please raise their hand? Any abstentions? No? Okay, so I think that's full. Yeah, okay. So this resolution has been agreed, specifically that this application has been approved. Thank you all for that application. So, rewinding 2 steps, agenda item 6, application number 24/01735/Phil, unit and yard at 8 Five Tree Works, Bakers Lane, Gallywood, Chelmsford. I would like the planning officer to introduce their report to the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so this is an application for a change of use from a landscaper's yard to a crane operation training facility, including the storage and distribution of those 2 cranes. So in terms of the location, this first site plan is at a macro scale, just showing the location of the site in relation to Gallywood and also the strategic road network just east of the junction 16 interchange. And then slightly more zoomed in here, shows that it's part of an established industrial area on the north side of Bakers Lane, and also shows in relation to the other development along Bakers Lane. And this is the red line of the application site itself, so it's in the northeastern corner of that industrial estate, And in the top right-hand corner, this is the proposed layout plan. You'll note that there is no cranes represented on here because it's just the fixed aspects of the layout, which really is just the parking provision and the pedestrian walkway. So these three photographs are the layout as it currently stands. You'll see the two cranes. These are mobile cranes. And then in the top right-hand corner there's a group of storage containers, and this forms the training facility. So the 3 classrooms, the office, etc. And the proposal has 3 core elements, really. The storage and distribution of those 2 cranes, siting of storage and office containers, and the use of both of those elements for educational purposes. Highlight details of the proposal. As mentioned, the existing lawful use of the site is as a landscaper's contracting yard. The maximum height of the telescopic booms of the mobile cranes, so the extendable arms, is 24 metres. Up to 3 courses may run per week, 2 of those involving the mobile cranes. So the third one would be purely classroom-based, MVQ type qualification. Training opportunities for 18 pupils per week, that's 6 per course, 6 full-time employment opportunities, 3 part-time, space within the site for adequate provision, so it's not spilling out onto Baker's Lane. And importantly, this follows a previous refusal last year, which involved the siting of a permanent tower crane, as well as the development proposed here. So the 3 main issues relate to Greenbelt policy, visual impacts, and the resulting planning balance. And at the core of all 3 of those is really the visual impacts of these telescopic booms. So here's a photo indicating the kind of physical appearance of one of these mobile cranes with the boom extended. And I'm going to refer to 2 materials to exhibit the visual impacts. The first one is visual impact assessment. This is submitted as a supporting document. And the second is going to be photos of the tower crane from the previous scheme to use as a point of comparative analysis, as a kind of barometer for the mobile cranes. Don't have our own photos of the mobile cranes extended, which you'll note. And the reason for that is because 3 unscheduled attempts were made to get photos in the surrounding area, all of them unsuccessful. The cranes were not in operation with the booms extended, even though these visits were made midweek during business hours. And it's important to note that because I think it indicates the transient nature of the visual impacts. A later attempt was made to schedule a visit, but then we received the visual impact assessment, so it was deemed unnecessary. So just to preface the comparison with the tower crane, which I'm going to get onto first, the previous application was refused for reasons flowing from the tower crane only. The tower crane has since been dismantled, and it does not form part of this proposal, I would stress. We're purely using this as a point of comparison. And also between that refusal and the current proposal, there have been significant NPPF, National Planning Policy Framework changes, which are set out in the report. So this is the previous tower crane. The tower of the tower crane rose to a height of 24 metres, which is significant because that is the maximum height of the telescopic booms of the mobile cranes. So that is the comparison up to that red line. And the maximum height of the tower crane was 55 metres, just to compare. On the left-hand side, there's a number of points that I'd just like to mention before we review the photos. Obviously, the height is not the same. The mobile crane only comes up to the top of the tower. The mobile cranes are on a linear incline, whereas the tower crane has irregular elements. Tower crane, again, was permanent feature. The telescopic booms are retractable. And there are 2 mobile cranes proposed, whereas with the tower crane there was only one. So again, the red line is approximately where the telescopic booms would extend to maximally. This is in front of the nearest dwelling, Paddy's Cottage. Further east along Baker's Lane. To the west along Baker's Lane. This is to the west on Stock Road. There's a field access here. The Stock Road Bridge over the A12. This is quite an important one because the visual impacts of the mobile cranes on users of the A12 formed part of the second main issue. And then another field access to the west. This is from the Gallywood Common South car park. And then this is from Lower Green, so a southern point of Gallywood, and this is at the access to a public right-of-way. And this is to the east on West Hanningfield Road, and this again is the access to a public right-of-way. So coming on to the visual impact assessment that was submitted as a supporting document, these are the viewpoints that have been assessed by the applicant. The green dashed line is the public right-of-way network in proximity of the site. And we're going to look at some of these because they differ from the photos that we got of the tower crane. So we're going to look at number 3, 12, 6, 7, and 9. So this is number 12. Along a public right-of-way just north of the site. Number 12, yeah. This is between the A12 and Lower Green. This is the same point at which the photograph of the tower crane was taken, on Lower Green. And further east along the public right-of-way. So ultimately, the visual impacts of the booms have been assessed as limited to modest, with the imposition of planning conditions. And in terms of the 3 main issues, firstly, as a holistic assessment of all the elements of the proposal and all the different considerations of harm to openness in the Greenbelt, the overall harm is assessed as limited. And there are 2 routes to the proposal constituting an exception to inappropriate development in the Greenbelt. The first one effectively allows impact up to the threshold of substantial. So the limited impact is well below that. So it constitutes an exception by that route. And there's also a second route which doesn't take account of harm to openness. And that's based on whether the site's in the grey belt, whether the proposal meets a demonstrable unmet need, and whether the location's in a sustainable location. And on those 3 counts also, we consider that the proposal is an exception to inappropriate development. In terms of visual impacts within the scope of the development plan, we consider there's a minor policy conflict there with harm to the character and appearance of the area. However, we consider that that is outweighed by the economic benefits of the proposal. So, on the whole, the proposal complies with the development plan read as a whole. And latterly, material considerations weigh further in favour of the scheme. And those include the provision of post-16 training opportunities, the reuse of previously developed land, and something else that I've forgotten. and the supporting of an industry of national importance. So those three elements further justify the decision in accordance with the development plan. In terms of conditions, we're recommending a suite of conditions really to limit the impacts from going any further. So they relate to hours of operation, lowering and retraction of the booms, maximum height of the booms, height limitation of additional containers, retention of perimeter landscaping, parking provision, and a limitation on pupils to limit impacts on parking, mainly. Just to consider the parameters and triggers of a few of those conditions, there's a number of conditions which relate to opening hours, and each of these tackles a different aspect of the scheme because the different elements are impactful in different ways. So condition 2 is relating to the provision of the education only. So we think it's reasonable to allow that to take place on Saturdays for half the day. Condition 3 is the storage and distribution element. So similarly, we consider that's also reasonable to take place on Saturdays. 4 relates to the operation of the cranes on the site. So in view of the greenbelt impacts, character and appearance impacts, and impacts on nearby residents, we think that it's reasonable to limit that just to Monday to Friday. And then outside of those hours, there's a condition here to stipulate the retraction and lowering of those telescopic booms as much as possible. Condition 9 is the perimeter landscaping, and this is to be in effect for the duration that the mixed use takes place. And then condition 10 is the parking, so the 10 bays that are on the proposed layout plan, plus a further 8 within 2 months of a prospective approval. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The councillor who called this in to the committee isn't available, and we have no members of the public wishing to speak on this item. So I will open this straight up to the committee for any questions or queries. Councillor Tron.
Thank you. In terms of the hours of operation, can I ask, is from 7:30 a.m. till 5:30 p.m. You know, a standard range of times, please?
The reason that we have imposed those hours is because those were the proposed hours, those are the hours that it's currently operating at. And we consider that that's reasonable because there's other businesses on the industrial estate, one of which is a nursery, which opens at 7 a.m. and that runs until 6 p.m. So it's within the hours of activity taking place on the site.
Any further questions? Councillor Hyland.
Thank you, Chair. Within those operating hours, is there any expectation of more lighting to be used around the training area? So we just want to make sure the visual impact from the site is not enhanced by non-common land lighting.
We haven't imposed a condition relating to the lighting, mainly because this is an existing industrial estate. There would be impacts flowing from the current lawful use of the site and the adjacent units as well. So we don't consider that to be necessary. Of course, conditions do have to meet a number of criteria, and necessity is one of them. So on that basis, we haven't imposed such a condition.
Would you like to come back on that point, Councillor Hyland?
Thank you. So flood lighting could be a possibility on site. That's the risk that I see to this particular plan if there is no condition to prevent the use of flood lighting for the training purposes.
Sorry.
Yeah, if you want to reply to that, yeah.
In terms of the flood lighting potential, I mean, the floodlight columns would constitute a separate act of development, which in themselves would require planning permission. And also, if lighting was of such an extent as to cause nuisance to the resident nearby, which is relatively close to the southeast, then would be a matter for public health also to tackle. So I think sufficient provisions are in place to prevent such an outcome.
Fair questions. Yes, Councillor Dobson was next, I think.
Thank you, Chair. My concerns actually are more to do with the impact on the highway on Bakers Lane. The actual scheme itself, I actually went down there in that area today and I didn't see any cranes working either. So, you know, I think with all the information we have, the actual impact of the actual scheme itself isn't a concern of mine, especially with all the conditions. What I am concerned about is where the cranes are being moved, because Bakers Lane is a particularly narrow lane, as you probably know. It is in a dreadful state. It is subsiding in several places, and I'm surprised that the highways didn't mention anything to do with that. And unfortunately, there's nobody here tonight either to even sort of mention, you know, to confirm that. But certainly, Bakers Lane is a concern, and I'm not sure how often they are intending to move these cranes backwards and forwards. Is there any more information that what the applicant is intending to do? Thank you, Chair.
If you'd like to come back on those points, yeah.
Thank you. In terms of the distribution schedule, we don't have information. I think it's reasonable to assume that movements wouldn't take place very often because the 2 cranes are required on site for training purposes, and there is a condition prohibiting further cranes from coming onto the site. So movements would be very limited. In terms of the impact on Bakers Lane, we're very much led by the consultation response from Essex Highways. They haven't raised any concerns here, and also they didn't raise any such concerns during the tower crane scheme either, which would likely be a more substantial vehicle. There may be impacts to the highway, and you know the highway may not be in the best state. However, it would not be reasonable to level responsibility at these particular applicants and this particular site. It is an established industrial estate, so it would be expected that vehicles do come and go, and also the existing lawful use of the site as a landscape contractor's yard would entail significant vehicle movements. Perhaps vehicles that are not as heavy, but certainly vehicles at a more regular interval.
Councillor Armstrong.
Just on how the application's worded and the conditions. Obviously, what we've seen, all that the visual impact is based off one type of crane, which isn't fixed, but there are other non-fixed cranes, including non-fixed tower cranes or ones with booms that could go considerably higher than 40 metres. Is our wording that's been put in this suitably robust that they wouldn't be able to bring, say, a mobile tower crane, which do exist? They drive in very much like that one there, but they set up differently, and they set up to look very much like a tower crane and can easily reach 60 metres plus. Is it worded robustly enough so that that is protected?
If you'd like to come back on that point.
Thank you, Chair. So condition 6 prohibits any part of any vehicle-mounted mobile crane site on the land to exceed a height of 24 metres from existing ground level. So we have that height limitation for vehicle-mounted mobile cranes. And the description of the proposal relates expressly to vehicle-mounted mobile cranes. So in that regard, I would say that that's sufficiently restrictive. We also have condition 7 that says at no time shall any cranes other than vehicle-mounted mobile cranes be erected or operated on the site. So, yeah, I don't foresee any route out of those limitations, really.
Are you happy with that, Councillor Armstrong, yeah? Okay. Any other points, questions or queries like to be raised? I've got a question with regards to the previous application, the tower crane. I thought I read somewhere in the pack that that was 24 metres. Looking at the pictures, it looks like it was substantially taller than that. So how high was the tower crane that was refused? Thank you.
Yeah, so the tower crane application initially, the proposed height was as it was in that initial photograph. So the tower of the tower crane was 24 metres, and then the parts above that, including the jib, counter jib, cab, and all the rest of it, in total it extended to a maximum height of 55 metres. They did come in with some amended plans which reduced that height to 40-ish metres, I think. But as photographed, the tower was 24 metres. Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying that point. Yeah, okay. Any other questions or comments? No. Okay, so in that case, I move that the application 24/01735/full, the Unison Yard at 5 Tree Works, Bakers Lane, Gallywood, Chelmsford, be approved, subject to the conditions detailed on page 32 to 35 of the agenda pack. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Papa? Will all those in favour of approving this application please raise your hand? Thank you. All those not in favour of this application please raise your hand. And any abstentions? Nope. Okay, well that's carried. So that resolution has been agreed for the fact that this application will be allowed. Thank you. So moving on to agenda item 7, 71 Ashgrove, Chelmsford, CM2 9JT. Once planning officers are ready, could you please present your report? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This application relates to a householder application at 71 Ashgrove. The proposal is for a ground floor infill and first floor rear extension. The application site is outlined in red on the plan. 71 Ashgrove lies within Molsham Lodge, where domestic extensions are acceptable in principle. It is an end terrace house close to the junction with the Lucas Avenue. Here are some context photos. Photo 1 is the view from Lucas Avenue. The side of the house is clearly visible and already has a seamless 2-storey side extension. Photo 2, located at the top right, shows the substation, and there is an existing ground floor extension and canopy lean-to that lies beyond. Photo 3 shows another view from the entrance to Ashgrove. In these photos, you can also see the 2-storey side and rear addition at number 57 Lucas Avenue. Here is the proposed block plan and flank elevation, which you've just seen would be visible in the street scene. For context, I've highlighted the first floor extension in green. This would extend 3 metres from the existing rear wall and would have a hipped roof. The ground floor element, which would replace the lean-to, is highlighted blue and would extend approximately 5 metres from the rear wall, 1 metre further than the existing canopy and ground floor extension. I have highlighted the substation yellow, which lies adjacent to the proposed extension. The extension would be visible in the street
due to the proximity to the junction, but not significantly so. The ground floor elements would be partly screened by the existing substation, and it would be finished in matching materials. Officers are content that the extensions would be proportionate in scale to the existing house. Just so members can visualise the extension, the front elevation would remain unchanged and a 3D image is shown of the proposed additions. Officers have looked carefully at neighbour relationships, including a site visit to number 57. For context, the extent of number 57's garden has been shaded orange. The dimensions show the distance to the flank wall. It is acknowledged that the development would be clearly visible, particularly from the neighbouring property number 57. The extension would not extend forward of the existing flank wall. The separation distance exceeds the privacy and proximity standards required of the local plan, which is 12.5 metres. No windows are proposed that would cause any overlooking. The extensions are located to the east, beyond the substation, and would not result in an unacceptable loss of light due to the orientation. In conclusion, the site is visible from Lucas Avenue and Ash Grove. The extensions would be visible in the context of both streets. Officers are content that the scale, form and design of the proposal would be acceptable. It is acknowledged that the development would be clearly visible from the garden and rear windows of number 57, as well as others in Lucas Avenue. The extensions would not be overbearing or create unacceptable overshadowing. Officers are content that the neighbouring relationships would be acceptable, and the application is recommended for approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I understand we have a member of the public who would like to speak to this item. Mr. Torts, if you'd like to, I don't think the microphone's working up there, so if you'd like to come down to the front and use one of those. If you press, I think it's the middle button, and the microphone will turn red. Thank you. When you're ready, you have 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. We consider that the proposed development does not adequately safeguard the amenities of occupiers of nearby residential properties. The extensions will have a detrimental effect on the future enjoyment of our property in terms of presence directly on the boundary, and the combination of the existing flank wall and the new extensions will create a sense of enclosure. The first floor element of the extensions will be unduly overbearing and oppressive due to bulk and scale, and will be harmful to the outlook enjoyed from our house and garden. We have sent the committee photographs highlighting the approximate extent of the first floor element of the proposal. Although the design of the proposed development might be in keeping with existing local two-storey extensions, the examples identified in your report are of equal and much shallower projection with a completely different orientation to and impact upon neighbouring properties than the unique relationship between 71 Ashgrove and our property. We believe that the report contains misleading information about the impact of the proposed extensions. Paragraph 5.6 states that the brick substation sits between the majority of the two-storey part of the proposal and the neighbour's property. However, the substation will actually only sit in front of half of the 3-metre projection of the two-storey part, so less than the quoted majority of the ground floor of the extension will be obscured by the substation. Paragraph 513 states that the ground floor element will be only partially seen due to its siting to the rear beyond the existing substation. However, less than 1/3 of the 5-metre projection of the ground floor element will be sited behind the substation, so the extension will be much more than only partially visible. These incorrect assertions minimise the impact of the development and appear to be derived from errors in the depiction of the shape and position of the substation and the dimension of the proposed extensions shown in revised drawings PL5 and PL6. We drew these errors to the attention of the Council on 30 April 2025. We consider that it is difficult to fully envisage the impact of the proposed development purely from your report, particularly given the misleading statements therein.
Could you sum up now, please?
We respectfully urge the committee to refuse planning permission, or at least to defer the application to enable members to visit our property to assess the application in the context of its impact on our house and garden. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Before we go to officers, I would like to hear from Councillor Thompson, who called us in. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I obviously we can see the strength of feeling that's been raised by this, so I just wanted to call it in just so that that could be fully considered as part of this. Just a few additional points. So there isn't any vehicular access to the rear of 71 Ashgrove from Ashgrove itself, although rear access to the property is available from the garage block access from Lucas Avenue. It is very narrow, the access there, and I think there's some question as to whether that could actually be navigated by construction vehicles in terms of how this is going to be constructed if it goes ahead, certainly without causing significant inconvenience to neighbouring residents and garage users. A few further points. I think there probably are one or two mild, I'm sure, inadvertent inaccuracies, some of which have already been mentioned. But for instance, the substation in the plans is shown as having a flat roof. I went and inspected the site, and actually it's very far from flat. It's quite raised at an angle. So there are one or two. Obviously, it's for members to decide whether those are sufficient to take into consideration. But there's certainly one or two inaccuracies that my site visit showed me. The roof covering the substation comprises of corrugated asbestos, which may possibly date from the construction of the buildings in the late 50s when Molsham Lodge went up. Part of the proposed ground floor and first floor rear extension is intended to be sited immediately abutting and directly above part of the substation. So we just need to consider any potential health risk from asbestos fibre release if the roofing materials of the substation were disturbed or damaged in any way during the construction of the proposed extension. Hang on, where am I next? And also, if I could just question, the applicant doesn't appear to have submitted a building regulations application for the proposed development, so I don't know whether the officer could comment on the relevance of that missing, and to also mention that there were two mature Leylandii trees that were removed from the area between the rear of Ashgrove and the boundary with 59 Lucas Avenue about 12 months ago. It is understood that the lateral root spread of Leylandii can be extensive and that significant root growth is likely within the shrinkable soil area immediately adjacent to the siting of the proposed development. So that's also something to take into consideration. And finally, regarding the boundary wall, the objectors, Mr. and Mrs. Touts, did formally request as part of their objections to the planning application that if permission were granted, a condition be applied to require that the existing brick boundary wall between their property and 71 Ashgrove that will be demolished to facilitate the rear extensions be replaced with a new brick wall from the end of the proposed ground floor rear extension to the boundary of their property. They consider the condition reasonable to ensure that the existing brick facade between the properties that has been in situ since the original development of Molsham Lodge Estate is maintained and secures the continued protection of their privacy. I will leave it. I'll leave it there. There's obviously a number of points for the officers to come back on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. If the officers would like to come back on the points raised there, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Maybe in reverse, I think, if that's okay. In terms of the query about the boundary wall, condition 3 on your agenda pack is a standard condition where we want to review replacement boundary treatments at a time so that we make sure that we get something back along the boundary. Things change during most building projects, as we know. But a proper boundary treatment will be put back if any is removed as part of the development and secured by that condition. The 2 Leylandii trees that have been removed, I would be pretty certain they wouldn't have been subject to a tree preservation order, being Leylandii trees, so they could have been removed at any time. I'm unaware of there being any building reg application. That is not relevant as part of a planning application. They're very different timings, as you know. Some people secure a planning permission and then choose to wait a year, 2 years before they submit a building reg application. So that's not unusual for there not to be a building reg application in at the same time. The roof of the substation, I couldn't say for sure whether it is or isn't asbestos. There would need to be some kind of Party Wall Act agreement with the electricity company in terms of building works on a boundary, and also the removal or damage to asbestos is covered by other legislation, so we wouldn't control that as part of any planning application. But I understand your concern, Councillor, about the hazards. The inaccuracies in the planning drawings, the flat roof depicted of the substation, we know that's not accurate. We did try to get the agent to make corrections to the drawings. That isn't always possible with some agents, but we always, as you know, carry out a site visit on every planning application, whatever it is, and one of the reasons we carry out a site visit is that we can see with our own eyes what's actually on the ground and note any discrepancies between drawings and fact. So we were very aware in our assessment what the roof of the substation actually was, and was able to take that roof form into account. In terms of construction traffic and there being limited vehicle access at the back, the site does back onto a garage court, but there's a parking space on the front of the property. Construction traffic for domestic extensions, it's always inconvenient. All the neighbours will at some point have to shuffle a car. That is just inevitable. That is part of a building project. It's not on a main carriageway, so any very local inconvenience to other residents from construction traffic would be a temporary arrangement, and isn't a reason that we could refuse planning permission. We have carefully considered the concerns of the neighbours whose garden backs onto the property. We undertook site visits. My colleague undertook site visit to that property, to fully understand and appreciate the relationship and note any inaccuracies in drawings. But our recommendation, Chair, is as before you, that whilst we accept that the proposed extensions will be very noticeable and very and visible to a number of neighbours, including the Tults, that doesn't mean it's unacceptable or has an unacceptable relationship. We're satisfied that the proposal is policy compliant. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe you did cover all the questions and points raised. Councillor Thompson, are you happy that everything was covered there? Yeah? Thank you. I will open this up to the committee. Does anyone from the committee have any questions or queries on this application? Councillor Large.
Thank you, Chair. I was wondering if officers have any photos in the garden of the existing back of the property.
The garden from the application property?
Oh yes, sorry, at the application site, so I can see what's there at the moment at the back. Because we had a picture of what the proposal is, but yeah, what's there at the moment. Thank you.
So there's a flat roof extension on the common boundary with the adjoining property. You can see that the adjoining property's got a rear dormer. So that flat roof extension runs along the common boundary. And then to the left-hand side of that extension is like a lean-to, and that goes up to the boundary with the neighbour. And you can see the neighbour's shed there in the left-hand image on the other side of the boundary.
Thank you. So I can appreciate why the neighbours might feel that this is it's going to be a change to their outlook, but I don't feel that it's enough of a, or it's an overbearing change, and that should be refused. I think that it should be approved.
Thank you. I've got a quick question on this slide here. I'd noticed it looking through the agenda pack previously. Has this house had a side extension previously? The brickwork looks slightly different at the top.
Yes, well spotted. It's had a seamless two-storey side extension. That's not an uncommon extension within Morsham Lodge.
Thank you. Any other questions or queries from the committee? Councillor Clark?
Sorry, just to check, are we sure that there's no loss of or reduction of light amenity for the neighbours?
The extension is to the east side of the neighbour, so in terms of how the sun comes around, the rear extension at first floor projects 3 metres beyond, so at some point of the early part of the day as the sun starts, there will be a little bit more shadow, but our role as planners is to take a judgment on whether that is so harmful, and our view is that it's not harmful enough to justify refusal of planning permission.
Thank you. Any further questions? No? Okay, so I move that application 25/00229 full 71 Ashgrove, Chelmsford, CM2 9JT be approved, subject to the conditions detailed on page 142 of the agenda pack. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Dobson? Will all those in favour of approving the application please raise their hand? Thank you. Any people not in favour, please raise your hand. And any abstentions? Thank you. I confirm that this application has been approved. Thank you. Item 10, planning appeals. Within the agenda pack, I think there were 8 planning appeals there, 4 of which were agreed by the inspectorates with the council. 4 were the cow sheds, the infamous cow sheds. Thank you for your time, everybody. The meeting is closed at 8:31. Thank you.